So today we're going to talk a little bit more about the elephant in the room, when students might begin to ask why there are two teachers in a classroom. These questions often surface when co-teaching is new to students and they haven't seen the structure before. Regardless, though, it is important to acknowledge the question as it is a valid one. I took part in a co-teaching classroom for high school biology students. This question was definitely something that my co-teacher and I received in our first year or two of teaching, but over time, students stopped asking the question because co-teaching model became more prevalent across campus and students became more familiar with it. I will say in the first year or two, we would explain that co-teaching allows for additional support in the classroom and that all students can benefit from additional support structures. But it was more when the questions came about, regarding who the real teacher was or who was grading our assignments. And the answer was always both teachers. I would say that the key to co-teaching success is made possible when co-teachers share equal responsibility every single day in the classroom. This can be both during a lesson, in creation of a lesson, through grading, discipline, and any other activities that might happen in a classroom. When students see that there's shared leadership in the classroom, they can understand that teaching doesn't always have to come in the form of one person. I also think that co-teaching often dismantles the notion that one person holds the knowledge in the classroom, but rather that knowledge is shared and created through multiple people, from teachers as well as from students. For this structure to work, though, and to take hold and for it to be effective, it does mean that co-teachers really have to get to know one another, discuss each other's strengths and weaknesses, and have a shared investment in the class itself. It helps to have structures and continuity in the classroom so that students know what to expect. The more that we can normalize co-teaching and its structures, the fewer why questions students will have. Co-teaching is about accessibility, support, and equity. And I'm sure we can all agree that those aspects should never be discouraged from a classroom. I will share that co-teaching can become more difficult to comprehend for students if the lessons or the dynamics between the both teachers doesn't feel connected or it feels forced or rehearsed. If a power dynamic can be observed in a classroom, or if perhaps one teacher takes the majority of the role while the other teacher just supports or checks in with students, that's not what co-teaching is, and students are going to be able to see that. So to ensure this doesn't happen, co-teachers really need to invest time with one another to share strategies, to plan, and to discuss thoughts with one another. It's helpful to create a sense of how each lesson is going to flow, who's going to be responsible for what parts. And it's helpful to discuss like classroom management and how teachers are going to navigate those responsibilities with one another. It's also helpful to discuss how grading will be split between the two teachers, because I do think it's important for both teachers to, again, be invested in the classroom and take part of the different components of the classroom, as well as find weekly times. Co-teachers should find weekly times to reflect on student progress in their class, as well as kind of discuss ways that they should intervene if necessary. Eventually, the goal would be for co-teachers to plan like full-on lessons with one another, to take lessons and to discuss how activities can be differentiated to meet the needs of all learners in your classroom. Is there a way to do stations while leveraging the expertise of different teachers? Or if there's a paper assignment, how can we create differentiation and scaffolding to support learners at all levels to ensure success? Once co-teachers can be seen as a unit, I can almost guarantee that the why questions will slowly become non-existent and students will really learn the benefit of the co-teaching model. I will say that co-teaching does take work to build, and I would be lying if I said that it doesn't sometimes feel like extra work, because we're no longer operating on an individualized unit. However, when you and your co-teacher have found a system that works for you both and for your students, I guarantee that you'll really begin to see the benefits and the power of collaborative efforts and its effect on student engagement and success.